Hello, welcome to another episode of the Live Cost Construction Experience. I'm delighted this week to be joined by Paul McCartney. Paul is the founder and the CEO of SnapFix. And I took a little snippet from your LinkedIn profile here, Paul. I hope you don't mind. And it's interesting because it says at SnapFix, they have an exciting and challenging mission to become the de facto task management and teamwork solution globally. That's interesting, and that's something that we really want to focus on. That's why we wanted to get Paul in on. So just starting with buildings, and that's right up our alley, which basically allows us now to speak to Paul about the interesting things that he's doing around construction. Paul, first of all, you're very welcome. Great to have you here.
Thank you very much, Kieran. I'm absolutely delighted to be here this morning.
How's it all been going for you, Paul? Let's just kick off, I suppose. We're in the midst of an interesting time, let's call it that. How's it been for you guys, and how's it been personally?
Well, as I tell some of the new people that have joined the SnapFix company recently, you'll be coming on a roller coaster with us, and it's actually been some roller coaster for the last 12 months or thereabouts. So it's actually been going quite well. The fact that we're a software as a service company, we can sell software anywhere in the world, has been very good for us. So things are going well, in particularly internationally.
Good. Looking forward to getting into a bit about SnapFix and I suppose the journey you've been on there to date. But I always like to kick off with a little bit about the person. What's your own background, I suppose? Where did your journey start, and how did you end up doing stuff for construction?
Yeah, well, my own background, Kieran, is 25 years, more than 25 years in computer software development. And I've also been involved in managing a number of residential and commercial buildings as part of a family business. And I originally built SnapFix to solve my own problem. I was quite frustrated about 4 or 5 years ago with the poor communication and collaboration in managing those buildings. A lot of post-its, emails, voicemails, phone calls, flying around the place. And I started looking to the market at the software that people used and loved. And I really looked at the WhatsApp model. Everybody likes taking photos. Everybody can tag, can use messaging. And I created SnapFix to be a kind of a task management or teamwork version based on a lot of the simplicity principles of WhatsApp.
So the idea then is stemmed from, I suppose, what we say with our own thing as well. I suppose you're scratching your own itch essentially. You had a set of problems managing the properties that you were managing, and then you're I suppose, were you using WhatsApp yourself then? Were you?
I was using WhatsApp, and it was incredibly frustrating. Let's say, for example, you've got 100 properties and you're dealing with an electrical company or a plumbing company. You have a disastrous conversation on WhatsApp. And what we did was we created a task management layer above kind of the WhatsApp look and feel. It's all our own technology, of course. I just use WhatsApp as a comparison in relation to simplicity. So everything in SnapFix starts with a photo, and everything uses a very simple red, yellow, green traffic light system to progress to completion. So everybody can take a photo. It speaks 1,000 words. It speaks every single language, and everybody in the world understands traffic lights. For us, it's the universal symbol of teamwork.
Interesting, because our own system is actually based around something very similar a lot of the time. So we just focus on cost, and a lot of the time it's I suppose the questions we would have been asked at the time is, where are we with that particular payment? What does it mean? And the simplicity that you talk about is something that we actually implement into our own product, which is traffic light system. Everybody understands that. There's no question. And if you don't, you probably shouldn't be in the role.
Absolutely. And I think the industry as a whole has been poorly served by technology in the past. A lot of the systems today have been forms based, they've been complex, they've been difficult to use and expensive. So we've gone to the other end of the scale to give people a platform that is simple to use, requires minimal or zero training, and the way we use photos, tags, and traffic lights means you can have infinite uses as well.
Okay, so what problem does that solve, and who is that target? Who's the product being targeted towards, and what problem are you solving for that particular person?
Yeah, great question. When you think about it, every single building, every piece of infrastructure, and every piece of equipment in the world requires ongoing maintenance. Some of it is very, very simple. Some of it is quite complex. But for a lot of the simple routine maintenance, you want something that's very, very simple and efficient. You can take a photograph of an issue, and when you can share it with your team, and when you resolve it, you move the traffic light to green. That level of simplicity allows people to get organized and track issues very, very efficiently. The last thing you want to be doing in a case like that is changing a light bulb that can take 10 seconds, and then you spend 5 minutes filling out a form. So we're moving the world from forms to photos.
Okay, yeah, no, it makes sense. I suppose we all get these ideas, and I say we all. I mean, most people are walking around businesses, and even operationally focused business, like a lot of, even when I go back to my own world, site form and them type of roles, we all get these light bulb moments, as you described there, and I think I have a solution to solve that problem. But that's probably as far as it gets for a lot of people. And some people will go and say, no, I really, really want to go and solve this problem. Like, how did you turn the idea into a business? So you're solving this problem for yourself, you're using WhatsApp. Now you've got an idea that WhatsApp, probably with a couple of layers on top of it, a bit more efficiency, simplicity, as you put it, could be really, really something that could solve a big problem for a lot of people. Like, what steps did you take to take that seed idea into something now that's gone on and taken on, let's say, seed investment and further investment past that?
Well, being a software developer, I knew all of the different steps of building a software platform. So the very first thing I did was I spoke to plenty other companies and realized that they all had the same problem. And then I went out and I developed a very, very simple prototype, a really, really simple prototype, where I was able to go back to all of those customers and say, if I was to create something like this, would this be of interest to you? Would you use something this simple? Now, I have to tell you, Kieran, the prototype was very rough and very early stage. From that, you build what they call in the trade a minimum viable product. So it is the smallest version that gives value to the customer. And that's what I got out to some of the initial customers. And by getting a product in front of real customers as quickly as possible allows you to harvest the feedback, and what you may have thought in the design stage is what they were looking for isn't always what they're looking for. So that feedback loop always helps you to refine it and refine it and refine it until you get to your version 1, essentially.
At that stage, Paul, are these customers that you'd be charging, or just sort of friendly customers?
Friendly customers at the very, very beginning, and then from that, the very, very early adopter customers would get a very, very attractive price because you always value their feedback. And but no, I met some incredibly positive customers in the very early days who got what I was trying to do. I had an absolute focus on simplicity, an obsession around simplicity, and I was iterating and trying different things until we got to the SnapFix we have today.
Okay, interesting. And did you avail of any of the sort of local supports, the startup supports that are available here in Ireland?
Yep. The local enterprise office in Dún Laoghaire was absolutely fantastic. They gave me a grant to help build the initial prototype. And believe it or not, I gave them back about 50% of it, because after I had initially designed what I wanted to build, by the time the grant came through, I had further focused on simplicity and chopped it in half again. So I only prototyped what I wanted to prototype at that point in time. So I'm not sure if they received too much grant monies back, but I was happy to only focus on what I needed to build at that point in time.
Brilliant, excellent. So you went in, you sort of got a bit of early stage funding to sort of improve out the model. Did that get you then to customers? That
got me to the minimum viable product stage. And then what I did was I signed up for an Enterprise Ireland New Frontiers program, which I'd highly recommend to anybody who's looking to start a business. And that was an invaluable program to kind of take your mindset out of just the product and to focus on everything from strategy, marketing, sales, and finance. So it gave you a great breadth of knowledge, and they introduced you to a lot of great mentors and their wider network as well. So that was very beneficial.
Interesting. Yeah, I actually took part in the New Frontiers program myself, so
fantastic.
Well aware of it, and would have the same experience as yourself. Well worth doing when you're in that idea stage. There's absolutely no question. What was the biggest takeaway for you then with New Frontiers? Was it one element of you that you look back on fondly, or was it just the collective of the program?
No, the big one for me was expanding your network. So
Yes.
it was meeting people. For me at the time when I did the New Frontiers program, I was looking to raise investment and to I used the program quite effectively to expand my own network and to talk to as many people in that investment world, which was kind of a new world to me, to be perfectly honest. As I could, everybody I met in Enterprise Ireland was hugely supportive and facilitated a lot of introductions. The mentors on the program were really supportive and facilitated more introductions, and everything just grew from there.
Yeah, brilliant. What advice then would you have for, I suppose, someone maybe someone even in construction that's looking at these? I suppose when I reframe that question, I think there's been a massive shift now in terms of the mindset in construction, and we're seeing it even to what we're doing today. This time last year, Zoom meetings,
Yeah.
they were there. There's no question they were there, but the preference from a construction point of view would be come and see us, Kieran. Please, can you come over? Can you drive down to us? I spend a lot of time in the car. This year, obviously, it's been forced upon us. But now we're starting to say, okay, well, that's actually quite efficient. What other technologies are out there? We've seen a massive shift. But I think how this plays out is actually you're going to see a lot of people in construction now. Now that there is this adoption happening, you're going to start to see a lot of construction people step into the solutions world, and that being technology. I can see a lot of that starting to happen. What advice would you have for someone maybe looking to go from operating in construction maybe to operating a new venture in technology?
Well, you're absolutely right. The entire world has changed the way they operate over the last 12 months, and in particular around remote work and safe distance teamwork. People don't need to be physically present to discuss something. They can use technology to leverage that with videos and photos and Zoom meetings and all of that. Is your question around somebody starting,
Yeah.
creating a technology company?
So yeah, so
Okay.
somebody's let's put a real life scenario on it. Someone's working in the, let's call it in the trenches day to day.
Yep.
They see problems. They think they have a solution to it. Where do they start?
To build their own product.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm a big fan of Paul Graham and the company Y Combinator in the West Coast. And the first thing I'd say, the first piece of advice Paul Graham always gives is build a solution that people want. So talk to enough of your peers or talk to enough of what could be customers, and make sure that it is a problem that people will pay for. When you build your prototype and you get your early version of your software, your solution out, get it into trial hands very quickly, because that feedback will be very important. You'll be doing stuff that doesn't scale. As you mentioned now, Kieran, right now we'll do a Zoom call with a hotel in or a company in Alaska or New Zealand or Australia. Whereas when I started out 2 years ago, I was driving down to County Clare, I was driving down to Kerry, I was driving to Galway, I was getting in front of customers, knowing full well that process could not scale, but it was the best way to meet real customers and get real feedback. And now we're at a position where everything we do is on Zoom, but we recognize the value of that starting point.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. We took part in the NDRC, which I'm sure you're aware of, Accelerator, and I went from operating a construction company into tech world, and that was my introduction in there. And one of the biggest takeaways, and something that I look so fondly back on, was the NDRC. Like, I suppose when you come from construction, you work on the sort of deadline basis. It's embedded into you. We need to get that done today, the week, the month. We need to be out of here. It's sort of embedded into you from day one. And when we went to the NDRC, they said stop everything you're doing, and you need to go and spend 6 weeks with customers. And that was just so alien to me that, like,
Yep.
stop. I've never, I don't know stop. That doesn't exist in our language. So that part is something I look very fondly on. 6 weeks, literally what you're talking about, jumping in the car, sitting, talking to people, understanding the problems, understanding the today's solutions to them problems, and then starting to think about technology as a an alternative or a more efficient solution to how they do things today.
And
You,
that knowledge is invaluable. And Paul Graham on paulgraham.com has an amazing blog that he just talks about all of these things. He mentored the early founders of Airbnb, or the not the early founders, the founders of Airbnb, and told them, go out into people's apartments, meet them, take better photographs, see what problems they want to solve. And that's how Airbnb differentiated themselves in an already very crowded market, offering those types of services.
So what advice then would today's Paul give Paul that's driving around, say, in the early days, up and down to Clare, as you just described? What advice would you give to early stage founder Paul on this SnapFix journey? What if you were to look back and sit down now?
The one key piece, besides getting in front of customers early and building something that people want, is getting a co-founder as quickly as you can, because a co-founder or multiple co-founders, sooner rather than later, because everything is very, very time consuming. It can be very, very stressful balancing everything. When you have a co-founder, you can bounce ideas, and you can share the workload. So if I was to learn anything over the last number of years, I would have introduced co-founders early. Today, I'm very, very fortunate to have some great co-founders with me now in SnapFix, and it's just fantastic.
Were the co-founders people you picked up along the way, or were the people that you had?
They were introduced through different means along the way. I didn't know them beforehand. They weren't childhood friends or anything like that, which you hear in a lot of startup stories. But no, again, it has to do with the value of the network and broadening your network and talking to enough people. And then when you meet the right people, you absolutely know it every single time. So I've got a fantastic CFO, Fergus McLaughlin, a fantastic CTO, Cathal Greeny, and recently joined David O'Reilly as head of sales and marketing. And again, when you meet the right people, you know it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you early on, Paul, would you have identified the areas where I suppose you would have said, maybe I'm weaker in these particular areas?
Yes.
These are the areas I need to go after.
Correct. Okay. So finance was one of the areas that I would not have been very strong on. It just wasn't my background. And when I met Fergus, and we sat down and chatted over a number of weeks, and it was everything was just a great fit.
Yeah.
And the same thing on technology. I'd met maybe about 8 or 9 different IT companies, and I met Cathal, and he was running his own company at the time. And the minute I met him, I said, "This is the person." That's best suited for building a global platform, because everything we've been talking about since day one is that this is a global problem. We're talking about every building, every piece of infrastructure, every piece of equipment in the world can use SnapFix, and it's a lofty vision. But when I met Ferguson, when I met Cathal and David, all three got it right away.
Yeah, because when you started off, it was hotels, wasn't it? It was.
Yeah. So it's very, very important when you start out. You want to focus on a niche, and you want to win that niche, and then expand out after that. So I started with hotels because they demand the highest quality. They operate 24/7, and they have a large audience of multilingual staff. And it was a great proving ground. But of course, hotels are less than 1% of the commercial building stock. So it was a great place to prove it. And then we've expanded out since last year to the wider FM and construction sectors.
So the construction sector would have been one that was always on the radar.
Yep, absolutely. Because when you think of maintenance or managing buildings or equipment or infrastructure, you're essentially kind of snagging, and the end process of construction sites is a high volume snagging effort, and that can be really, really efficient using photos and traffic lights now.
How have you found the industries then in terms of like their adoption to technology in comparison to, say, what you would have seen with hotels and that?
Very good, very demanding, and we want them to be demanding, because we're moving people from the frustration of maybe using WhatsApp. There's a consumer expectation of that level of quality, of that level of performance, of that level of beautiful design. So we're being pulled along quite quickly by very demanding customers.
And in terms of the product, then, Paul, is there a plan to sort of diversify out? As in, I suppose if I look at your product, I'm straight away thinking brilliant, niche, simple, you're going deep and narrow. Like, I suppose, have you got plans to go wider into, say, straight away? I'm sure you're getting pulled towards the relationship between what's happening on with a Snap in terms of the drawings and how that even comes through the payments. All that type of stuff is coming into my head. But I mean, are you being pulled in that direction?
Not being pulled in all of those directions, but the floor plan one, yes, especially in the construction sector. The construction sector live and die by floor plans. Again, they can be quite complex pieces of software, and we've recently had our product manager join us from 15 years in Google, and he's been tasked to develop the simplest floor plan solution on the planet. And my view is it will be a photo of some sort, maybe with a grid overlaying it that you can drop a pin. So we want to kind of radically change people's views of floor plans to bring it to the simplest solution, and to bring that solution to the mass market. You mentioned payments. It's not something that we're focusing on today or tomorrow, but if you can imagine that we're managing billions of transactions over time, and a percentage of those transactions will result in a payment. So yes, that's kind of finishing the loop of, you identify an issue, you share it with somebody, you progress it to completion, you pay them, and it's done. So it's a little bit further down the road. It'll be towards probably Q4 or Q1 of next year. But payments are certainly in our sights for completing the process.
Brilliant. And I suppose what's the overall goal then, Paul? Where do you see, because if you've just completed, congratulations on that as well. I know you just completed was it pre-Series A funding that you've completed?
Yeah, we were very fortunate. We put a lot of effort over about 3 to 4 months last year, meeting many angel investors internationally, all over Zoom, pretty much. A few face-to-face safe distance meetings, but primarily over Zoom, and we secured that funding. You know, in a global pandemic, with our country in lockdown and our initial niche of sectors being severely impacted, so we were delighted to get that over the line. Where we take it to, we want to become the WhatsApp for building infrastructure and equipment maintenance globally. With a dedication to simplicity, we'll achieve that goal. That's where we want to take this. We're always obsessed with simplicity. I'm probably always forever impatient about it needs to be simpler. 2 clicks needs to be 1 click. We'll be looking at voice technologies in the future. We'll be looking at the Internet of Things, but we'll be looking at the simplest version of it at every stage.
Interesting. And in terms then of integration, has that been something that's come, and what sort of platforms do you see yourself integrating with over time?
Absolutely. So the entire platform has built to be kind of integration friendly. So the Android app, the mobile, the Apple app, and the website use integration APIs to speak to the database. So we're fully API enabled from day one. We'll be taking messages in from smart buildings that have, let's say, Wi-Fi enabled their lights. And when a light is coming to the end of its life, let's say it's a 10,000 hour lifetime, at 9,950 hours, we'll take a ping into SnapFix to say, change me before I start flickering. So it'll be those kind of Internet of Things integration connectivities will becoming a bigger part of our future.
Yeah, that sounds great. It really does. I suppose, where can people now learn more about you, Paul, I suppose, and SnapFix?
Yeah, well, our website is snapfix.com, and it's everything is very simple. There's a whole series of videos out there whether you're in facilities management, construction, or asset management, equipment management, and we'd love to talk to you. We're available just about 24/7. We're following the sun, talking to our customers all over the world. So we've got a great team on board, and everyone's available to help.
Brilliant. Well, from someone that's gone through a funding in last year, I understand personally how difficult that is. So first of all, well done on that.
Thank you.
In a really difficult time. So well done on that one, and well done on everything you've done today. We'll be certainly keeping a close eye on how things move over the next couple of years. Paul, thanks for your time. Really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you very much, Kieran. I thoroughly enjoy this conversation, and I look forward to doing it again sometime.